The ideas and content expressed in this podcast are our own and do not reflect the views and opinions of any current or previous employers.
Boom. There it is. Having said that, welcome to the Construction Management Podcast. It's been a while, huh? We took some time off.
They're knocking on the door. Hold, please.
Who the fuck is knocking on the door?
Okay. No problem. Drop off a piece of shoe holding real quick. This is...
Jason, I'm super pissed off that people are interrupting us in our studio.
This is our very important studio.
It's almost like we're sitting in a storage trailer filled with building supplies and not in a high-tech studio somewhere recording the super sophisticated podcast.
Well, we don't have any of those things, so here we are.
Super disappointed that we don't have those things. All right, so anyway, so welcome back. So it's been a while. We took some time off because we have these things called jobs, and sometimes it gets in the way. But we wanted to take the opportunity to thank. We have gotten a ton of reviews on iTunes, and a couple of emails, and some questions. And we wanted to take the time to first thank all of our listeners around the world, actually. Around the world.
I love when you say
Jason,
that.
I don't know if you fully grasped that, but we actually have had people listen to this podcast in China, Germany, Singapore, Ireland, the UK, all over Europe, actually, Central America, Mexico, Canada, and
you should
of course,
see the stats, folks. Tens of people are looking at us.
as well as the good old US of A, which is where we are located. So that is really exciting. Again, we've gotten a bunch of reviews on iTunes that were just very flattering. Obviously, Jason, I think very highly of ourselves.
Of course. Somebody's got to.
So
probably the best part was some of the relative questions.
Yeah, so we have some really good questions. So we're going to try and address some of those questions. So we're going to read some of the reviews, some of the emails, and see if we can't answer some of these questions. So let's just jump right into it. So we'll start with assistant project manager. Is this guy's? Should we say their name? Can we say what their name is?
I mean, they're mostly screen names anyway, so we'll just call him Sid.
Wait, which one is Sid?
What was the first one? Asking about integrated product delivery.
Oh, that's where we're going. Okay, so
I made this list here.
I like your list.
Like we talked about,
very organized.
On a couple of previous episodes.
All right, so let's start with Sid.
So Sid asked about integrated product delivery.
So
integrated project delivery.
I'm gonna read it. So
go ahead, read it.
Have some context. So he says. So he gave us 5 stars. We love you. We love you, Sid. So Sid says, "Hi, I'm a student studying construction management. I love listening to your podcast. I already like this guy a lot."
What if Sid is a female?
Or a girl, whatever. I'm not here to judge.
No, I mean, look, obviously in school to do construction management.
So Sid says, "I was wondering if you've had any experience with integrated project delivery or fast track projects. We talk about them in class conceptually, but I'd love to hear some real life experience. If not, I'd love to hear about the different project delivery types that you dealt with and which is best for each type of situation. Thanks." All right, so Jason and I discussed this before the show, and we decided we were going to be super honest.
And I looked it up on Wikipedia.
So we looked it up. So here's the thing.
So this actually could be Sid's definition on some level, but integrated project delivery is described as a collaborative alliance of people, systems, and business structures and practices into a process that harness the talents and insights of all participants to optimize project results. It goes on to say increase the value to the owner, reduce waste, maximize efficiency.
Blah, 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 blah. So here's the thing. So I've actually taken some construction management courses in the past, and you're gonna when you sit through these classes, they're very lofty, very conceptual, and you're going to find that everybody wants to name, everybody that comes up with a different type of project management wants to name it, give it these fancy terms, integrated project delivery. that is really just a fancy term for we're going to bring everybody in before we start the project to lessen the mistakes we're going to make as we plan. Go. We're going to plan it.
That should be the case with all projects, really. I mean, if you're the type of person that goes out, looks at what you need, goes out, purchases the first couple of things that you think you need, and then realize, I don't have any like nails to hold this deck together. And so you go back to the hardware store and you pick up some nails, and then you're like, I have a hammer.
Oh, I needed a hammer for this. Yeah. So here's the thing. So there's tons of different project types out there, project concepts. You know, the PM BOC is another one. PMP, Project Management Professionals. They've got a whole huge system on project management that you could take that and apply it to a bunch of different building practices. I personally think it's all you PMP guys out there, I don't want to knock your program, but it's super stupid. It's very, very complicated. I actually sat through that class to get my certification, and I was like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. So basically, we talk about real life experiences. So when we're going to build something, it's a collaboration. So we already have our plans. We know what we're going to build, right? We have the end in mind. We're like, hey, we're going to build this house. This is the house type. These are the options it's going to go into. And we have a meeting with the owner, the construction manager, and we work it out. We say, hey, here's how this is going to work. But really, before we even get into that, we're like, here's the house we want. We send it out to bid. We get all of our trade partners, send us back their comments, their pricing. So before we start the project, before we put a shovel in the dirt, we already know what it's going to cost. We have a good idea as to how long it's going to take, and we know what we're going to sell this thing for.
Sure.
So then once we find a purchaser, a buyer, a client, whatever, we bring them in, we set them down, we say, hey, here's the process, this is what we're going to do. They've already selected all their options. Just like, and it doesn't matter if that is a house, a single-family home, a townhome, a retail store, a bank, an office building. You get all these things up front before you put shovel to dirt so you don't have the delays and you can properly price the thing out. So you already know your cost, your timeline, and exactly what your end game is. Then it's a matter of assembling your trade partners and getting to it.
Yeah, and what we're talking about is the construction management, which is a much smaller window in the time for the entire project. It depends on what you're building. If we're talking about land purchase and how we're going to develop that land, or a piece of property that's already an existing structure and try and build something else, you've got a whole bunch of other parts of it with planning and zoning and permits and basically permissions from your local government to be able to do it. But we're talking about construction management here. So, if we're building stuff, we're building for somebody who's already had that purchase in mind. But as far as integrated project delivery goes, we still do that on a smaller scale with residential construction, because when we get ready to start each project, we want to make sure we have the purchaser's ideas in mind. We want to understand what what they believe it's going to look like when it's finished, and then obviously all those things that you just said before. Our contracts are out on our house types and that sort of thing. Yep. What we don't want is what you see from time to time, which is you finish the tile guy and then you start calling the hardwood guy, or you finish you finish your hardwood and then you're like, all right, let's get the granite guy in here. Let's start the process of ordering some granite countertops for this kitchen.
Yeah. So it's like just in time manufacturing, honestly. So, once one task is completed, another one begins, and that takes a lot of planning. Because you don't want the process to stop or stall, which is a lot of what this integrated project delivery system talks about, or your fast track, as you put it.
That's all we know.
Yeah, that's
everything is all. I mean that.
Oh, you meant. Yeah, not like totally. I misunderstood you. I thought you meant that's all we knew in general.
Like end of sentence. No, I mean we used to even keep storage containers on a large job site where you would try and post up a whole bunch of parts that you might need, and then replenish pieces of trim or base or nosings for stairs or whatever the case may be. And that part of our building in Northern Virginia is behind us. You have to be on pace to be able to keep up.
Exactly. So Sid, here's the advice I would give you. absorb all the different systems that they're going to teach you in your classroom, memorize it, take your test on it, forget it, go out into the real world, and then start building.
And learn from a leader that's been doing it.
Any builder you go to is going to have their own system, whether they call it, Joe Blow's building system, or they call it, PMP, or they call it, just in time, or they call it integrated building, whatever. Just know, you need to know the parts, because every one of those systems has the same key elements. It's collaborative, it's just in time, it's control costs.
What's just in time mean while we're talking about it?
Just in time is like, you want the material to show up the day or the day before it's going to be used, so it's not sitting on the job site. That way it doesn't get stolen, damaged, etc.
Yeah, and you're not storing it somewhere and incurring other costs trying to move stuff around.
Exactly. So, Sid, I hope that answers your questions. I'm super excited that you're taking construction management. We need more construction management leaders in this world. Like I said, we're worldwide, so I'm not going to limit that just to the United States. All right, so Straw Dog, Road Dog.
Love it.
I believe is how that's pronounced.
And this one didn't really even have a question.
He didn't have a question.
I just want to bring it up because it was cool.
It was so awesome. It was so awesome.
He said he stumbled upon our podcast because he's an aspiring construction manager, and listening to these guys, he talked about practical lessons that they've learned is the insight he was seeking, and we've heard that over and over again because
over and over again
5 times. But the point is, like, what you're going to get out of us is real life. What we see in real time, not what you would read in a textbook. So it is probably as dumbed down as you can get it, but that's...
Can I read the last part of his thing? Because I thought it was awesome. He said, the best way I can explain it is having a first-time father put together a baby crib by reading the instructions versus a father of 5 kids. Who do you think knows what they're doing? I love that. I will tell you... Straw Dog, Road Dog, I always have extra pieces left.
I was going to say, but the truth is, I always put stuff like that together and then have to go to the instructions later.
I'm not reading these instructions. They're for people that don't know. And then I'm like, where are those instructions? Why do I have all these pieces
Clearly, they should go together very simply.
Did they put extra pieces in the box? All right, so...
Who's next?
Next, it's Nats. I don't know how you say that. Nats Boils. I don't know. It says, Damien and Jason are expert in the field, and it is great to be able to listen to them sit down and talk about what they know. The housing industry has and still is... I can't read.
An economic cornerstone?
Yes. And has still... and the more people that are involved or at a minimum knowledgeable about the field, the better. Highly suggest subscribing, and that is 100% accurate. Housing is a cornerstone of our economy. And one of the reasons we want to do this is so there are more qualified people to go out and build those homes. Because I will tell you, finding qualified construction managers is really tough.
I was just going to say that. There's lots of guys that can follow a schedule and show up to work each day. Mm-hmm. And it's tough to find people that can manage a project because it doesn't just have to do with building things. It has to do with managing the people, whether it's an architect that you're building for or a homeowner who's purchasing a home. And I feel like, with home building, that's what I've done. It's super important to the people that you're building it for, so Absolutely. They take it personally and serious.
So it's a combination of hard skills and soft skills. We'll get into that in later podcasts, but yeah, it can be tough, but very rewarding at the same time. So appreciate the comment. We've got I don't even know how to say this, but he says, thank you. MV says, thank you. I've been looking for months for a podcast that relates to actual construction management, not general project management across all industries. They are very different careers. So again, thank you. I will echo that because I looked for podcasts on construction management that dealt with construction and not contracting or architecture or whatever. And there are very few of them out there. Which is one of the reasons Jason and I wanted to sit down and do this, so that we figured if we were looking for it, there's got to be at least one other person out there looking for this podcast as well.
And it turns out there are 5.
Turns out there are 5 of you. So thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. So this one, you want to read this one? This one's really good.
All right, it's from Andrew in Idaho. He's an APM with a residential construction residential production building company in Idaho. And he said, I enjoyed your, quote, teach toward the uneducated approach. Now, I read that the first couple of reviews, and now I'm thinking that everybody's calling us dumb a little bit. Is that right? Maybe not. No, I'm just kidding. Like, look, the whole point of this is that it should be easy to understand. It's real life stuff. These are things that we're going to, you're going to have to deal with if you're building something for anyone.
Yep.
He said before he was doing concrete, mostly flat work, and he was earning a degree in construction management. He said, what is your take on the do's and don'ts of construction project manager? Where do you draw the line, so to speak? Let me back up a little bit. He says his PM has him running around as he's learning, fixing little things as he is building the house rather than the trade partners. He says he feels like he's being trained to be a handyman rather than a PM. What are your take on the do's and don'ts? So what is your take on it?
I have a couple of things I would say about that. First of all, if you're a manager, you're not fixing things, right? There's, you as a manager, you need to hold your trade partners responsible to complete their work. If you're running around caulking vanities and replacing trim and, fixing doorknobs or whatever, then you are truly learning how to be a handyman rather than a manager. There's a big difference. A big difference.
I tell my guys, if you're banging nails, you've already failed.
100%. 100%.
Now that being said, sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get the job done. If you're being told to do those types of things, you're acting like a punch-out guy rather than a manager, then maybe it would be good to continue doing those things so that you don't fail, but come up with ways to get out ahead of it. If those items are routinely not done, if there's 2 doorknobs out of every house that hasn't been installed, or you've got stuff that's in the garage that hasn't been set, they're waiting for their 3rd trip back to the house or whatever, how can you get out ahead of that in the beginning so that you don't have to do those things? That should be the goal. And maybe you even have to write down a plan on how you can get there so that your boss can see it from your perspective.
So So the flip side to that is this. You need to understand the work that you're asking other people to do. That doesn't mean you do it yourself, but you do have to have a good understanding. And the best way to do that is to be in your building, whatever structure you're building, to be in there with the trades, observing what they're doing, asking them questions about it, really gauging the difficulties of it, the intricacies of it, and the craftsmanship that it takes to do it, so that when you're scheduling, when you're demanding that subs show up or trade partners show up and get things done, you really understand the work that they're doing, so you know what's reasonable and what is not reasonable. I have a gentleman who likes to train all new guys by having them spend a week with a laborer and a week with a punch-out guy. I don't think that's the best approach, but the guy's got a great track record, so it's hard to argue with that. I know a lot of guys feel that way. They want their junior people to spend some time in the trenches so they understand the trades, but I really don't see... I can go both ways. If you want to learn the trades, work on projects yourself, at home, off the job. See how difficult it is. Make mistakes.
Do it in your own house, not one of mine.
Yeah, don't do it in something we're building. I don't need your trash project in my house. But definitely, get involved, figure out what it takes, ask questions. But remember, managers manage. They're not swinging a hammer.
I also want to bring it back here to Hashim. Was one of our first emails that we got. He was asking about, he was in school for construction management.
He was going to go to school. He hadn't started.
He hadn't started yet. Yeah. And he was going to. He was asking us, is it good for me to get a job in the meantime in one of these trades? And we were like, hell yeah!
Definitely.
Without question, it's good to understand what it's like to have somebody move up your schedule unexpectedly, or come back after your work is done and be like, this isn't good enough. And maybe those things you can learn from. And it happens all the time. Don't get me wrong. It does. And the other question that we got was, do you think you need to have a construction management education, like some sort of a certification to be a construction manager.
Absolutely not.
You definitely do not need that.
Nope.
However, if I'm looking at two guys, both of them are go-getters.
Yep.
They both want this job. They want to start in this career. They want to follow in my footsteps, let's say. And one of them has been going to school for it and learning all these fancy integrated project delivery. Hey, look, that stuff goes a long way, man.
That's the guy.
That means that you've put yourself in that mentality prior to even starting here. So I think that both going to school for construction management and getting a job in the field while you're there is probably really helpful. Definitely.
It just shows that you're dedicated to that career path. Mm-hmm. It shows some initiative before you actually start the career. So that's, although I can tell you, I've met some dudes with some construction management degrees that were arrogant sons of bitches, and I thought, buddy, I'm going to shove that textbook right up your ass and get out of my office.
That's true. Hey, look, it happens. And, there's no substitution for, like, learning what works and what doesn't. Yeah. On the job is where you're going to learn. That's what you said in the beginning. Like, learn it, master it, test on it, forget it all, come out into the field and realize you know nothing, because life in in the fast lane in construction is like you're going to learn it as you go.
Exactly.
Everybody's different.
There's no substitution for experience.
Sure.
That is for sure, especially in the building trades. You got to have experience, especially if you're going to walk out on a job site like you're 10 feet tall. You better be able to back that up.
Yeah. And the days of the old salty, angry construction manager in residential home building, those are over. Like, you can't be like that. You cannot be. If you're going to be a hard-nosed guy, you're also going to have to take that hard-nosed GC hat off and put on the customer service hat, and shifting back and forth from those things is not easy.
It's not. That's where those soft skills come in that we've talked about. It's true. Those days are, and it's probably good. I know that in the past I have been let's call it hot-headed.
It might have been me that said that, I think. It's hard not to get... Look, we run under a lot of tension. You're under a lot of stress. You're building a lot of stuff at the same time. It's big implications and dollar amounts.
A lot of money.
So you feel serious about it all.
Yep.
Hard to keep it together some days.
Sometimes you gotta do some breathing.
You know what I do? I try not to yell at anyone. But I do sometimes fly off the handle a little bit, and I say that it's part of my process.
Yeah,
I deal with everything.
I've always told people, until you've thrown your hard hat and freaked out on a job site, you really haven't done the job.
Buddy, that kind of guy, if you're that kind of guy, Damien is looking to hire you.
I'm looking for you. You're my guy. All right, guys, we're going to try and keep this one brief. Listen, we love the comments. We love the emails. We love the reviews. Please keep them coming. Subscribe to the podcast.
I haven't heard anything negative.
Shh.
No. I want to hear what you have to say if you're that sarcastic dude that's listening like, pfft, but then you've listened again.
Oh my God, you are asking people.
I'm asking for it. Reviews. I want it. Let's see.
Oh my God, don't do it. Don't do it.
All right, email it to us. Don't put it on
iTunes. Don't be a dick. All right, if you guys want to send us an email, it's info@constructionmanagementpodcast.com. We love to get them. Please subscribe on iTunes or Android or wherever you listen to the highest quality podcasts possible.
You can find us there too.
We'll be there too. We snuck in the back door. Anyway, thank you so much, and keep them coming. We really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.